Hello, manic.mercurian here with a birth chart reading. And before I get into the reading, I did just want to mention for anyone who would be interested in getting a reading such as this one for yourself, I am offering that service. I'm currently charging $20 US currency for a birth chart reading such as this one, but I also offer other types of readings as well. And for more information on all of that, I have a video that goes over that, so I'll link that in the description. But you can also email me for more information at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. But as for this reading here, this reading is for Monday, August 6th, 1990 at 8:17 a.m. in Humble, Texas. Um, and I think it's interesting. So this person, you and I have corresponded a little bit through email. So I've gotten to know you a tiny bit just through our email correspondence. And I knew you were a Leo. I think we had talked about, or you had told me the Moon and Aquarius part, but I didn't quite remember that just today. But what I'm trying to get at is, as soon as I pulled up your chart, it made a lot more sense because to me, through corresponding with you, you seemed very intellectual, very well. Like you had like superior writing ability and analytical ability, and those aren't traits that I necessarily expect from Leo. So I was definitely thinking there's something else kind of going on there. There's definitely seems like some intellectual things going on, if that makes sense. So as soon as I pulled up your chart and saw the moon in Aquarius and then the Virgo rising and the Mercury in Virgo, it really makes a lot more sense here. You do have Sun in Leo, of course, Sun in Leo, Moon in Aquarius with Virgo rising. But the Sun is in the 12th house, so it's tucked away. So you do have, that warmth and charisma, that vitality, all those, kind of friendly and fun Leo themes that we're all familiar with. You do have those for sure. Those are there, but they would take time to develop. They would take time to develop in your life, and also like getting to know people. It might take time for that side of you to come out. The reason is because whenever we have a planet in the 12th house, it is subdued. It's suppressed in some way, and because you have the sun there, it's your ego, it's your identity. Sun is strong in Leo, but because it's in the 12th house, it indicates to me that these are some kind of heavier themes here that I'll go into, but I feel like you're prepared for that. But it indicates to me that you were like pushed down, especially growing up. Like you felt like you couldn't express yourself. Maybe you did have a lot of warmth and charisma, vitality, especially with that Sagittarius IC. So you were, a happy-go-lucky kid. You had a lot of energy, but it's almost like you felt for one reason or another that you weren't allowed to express that. You weren't allowed to share that warmth and vitality, the spontaneity and the playfulness. A lot of these themes are something we associate with children in general, but even as an adult, you have these themes that are almost like kind of pressed down. So this would take time. It for many people, it takes until their 20s or 30s to really embrace and identify and develop whatever they have in the 12th house. So for you, having Sun there, it's a lot of your ego, your identity, your self-expression. So this would make you a late bloomer. It also means, though, that you're always blooming, you're always growing, you're very open. 12th house placements, although they are very difficult, especially having Sun or Moon there. I think Sun there would be even harder than having the Moon there. So that would be very difficult for you, but it also makes you very intuitive because 12th house is the place of the subconscious. So although your Sun, your ego, your identity, it's not always accessible to people because it is like tucked away in the subconscious. For you, it although it's very challenging, it can also be very valuable because you have that portal or that window to the subconscious. It's like you naturally live in your subconscious all the time. You're comfortable there. You get it. Other people don't really have that. They aren't as able to figure themselves out subconsciously. They aren't as I don't know, naturally comfortable or suited to explore the subconscious. So that's a strength that you have. This also makes you very insightful and very good at understanding other people. You just kind of naturally understand people. They may not understand you. They may see you as strange or especially since you don't you're not a very overbearing personality like we might expect from Leo. You're not super flashy and outgoing, and so other people may not always totally see you. They might not understand you. You have this kind of multifaceted nature having Sun in the 12th house. And this is something. The next part of what I'm going to say is something that I've just observed from people that have Sun or Moon in the 12th house. That they almost have this like damaged kind of beauty in a way. It's really beautiful. Like they have this. I don't know, this like really unique kind of aesthetic about them, like in a physical way. So make of that what you will. But let's go over to the moon real quick here. So you're born during a full moon. Actually, you're born right on a full moon, and not only that, but it looks like it was a full moon lunar eclipse here. So very very interesting, and I find Leo or in this case Aquarius full moons particularly interesting because um, as I've stated before, the Leo Aquarius axis is it's sort of like the peak or the precipice of the entire chart in a way, because it is the final product that is expressed or birthed before the downfall and the close that comes with the Virgo Pisces axis. So the Virgo Pisces axis closes everything, but before that, Leo Aquarius axis is like the final expression, if you will. So it's a very creative axis. There's a lot of creativity there. There's a lot of creativity because we're combining the Leo fire and enthusiasm and expression, the childlike wonder and creativity that you have. But we're combining that with this Aquarian, more stoic structure and discipline and holistic vision to, the maturity and wisdom to see into the future and to see the big picture. So having both Leo and Aquarius is very powerful. You can apply that a lot of ways. Um, it would make you very creative and able to be intelligent and to you could really apply this toward almost anything. Um, Hopefully I've illustrated that well enough. But on a more general level, being a fire air combination makes you very easygoing. You are in my experience, having sun and fire and moon and air, you're kind of light and detached, but there's enough warmth and charisma from that fire sun that you're easy to relate to. You get along with kind of everybody, especially with that 12th house sun. You understand people very well. You understand people from all walks of life. That's not hard for you at all. And with this fire, air, sun and moon, yeah, you just kind of get along with everyone. And also, having sun and moon opposite indicates that like often what I'll see is that you are very comfortable with people, but you're also comfortable alone. Again, especially with that sun in 12th house, that's kind of a loner placement. So you can kind of do it all. I don't think people always understand you. They see you as kind of an enigma or a mystery, but at the same time, you're very easy to relate to. And I know that's completely contradictory, but I feel like both elements are in your chart here, if that makes sense. And I think especially with time, having Sun in 12th house and Moon in 6th house, it would take you time to be more confident, more outgoing. So especially as you get later in life, especially the Saturn return is always a major one. Um, but and then the eclipse cycles too, which is a big thing that I'm going to get to here. But as you as you get older, especially going into your late 20s into your 30s, you'll be more outgoing, more expressive. You'll be more wanting to have fun and stuff, and not so. Like I think earlier in life you were very shy, having Sun in 12th house, Moon in 6th house, and then plus with this Virgo influence as well. I see you as being shy. I think the Sun in 12th house with Moon in 6th house are very difficult placements, as I kind of touched on. So I think you may have had a lot of trauma, early on, which isn't unheard of, I guess, for all of us. But especially having these placements, going back to how you were suppressed or limited, it would just take time for you to integrate and to be able to express yourself more confidently or more freely, I think. Moon in 6th house is a little bit similar to Sun in 12th house. They are opposite, of course, but Moon in 6th house, I've noticed that Moon in 6th house people are often very misunderstood. They tend to be kind of shy or anxious or introverted, and they feel like they're not misunderstood, or they feel like they are misunderstood. They don't always feel comfortable with people, but they're very kind individuals and very modest, very humble. It almost reminds me of like Dutchman energy because you naturally see yourself kind of on the outside of everything as like an outlier or a outcast. But again, you're very good at understanding other people, and this is strengthened by Moon and Sixth House as well. Since your Moon is closer to the descendant, you naturally focus on other people. That's kind of where your focus is. But I should definitely talk about how you were born on a full moon lunar eclipse. I don't know if you know that. Maybe you do, but yeah. So it was a full moon lunar eclipse in Aquarius. The sun and moon were not exactly conjunct the nodes, so this was not a fully visible eclipse. It may have been a partial eclipse. I would speculate that it was probably not visible in your area, and even if it was just a partial eclipse, not a full one. However, this is still a huge, a really big deal here. Um, this has multiple implications. For one, being born on an eclipse makes you more likely to be, I don't know, like a historical figure, or to have some kind of interplay or exchange with like the turn of events that affect maybe your area or your country or something. You may have this kind of, I don't know, some kind of unusual experience where you are a kind of a major player with some kind of major event or something of that nature. Okay. But then also going back to your kind of character development and your soul growth, you uh, you would especially be you would especially experience very strong phases related to eclipses and how the transiting nodes configure to your natal nodes. So what I mean by that is, we all experience this to some extent, especially like every time the nodes turn, they're constantly turning, they're constantly retrograde. Every time they either oppose our nodes or conjoin our nodes. So every time we have a nodal return or a nodal opposition, this happens every 9 years. So at age 9, you'll have a nodal opposition. And this is an age that's often very uncomfortable. We feel like we're on the wrong track, we're on the wrong place, we don't know kind of where we're going. But if you give it another 9 years, 9 years ahead at age 18, we have a nodal conjunction or a nodal return. And then everything kind of lines up. We feel very sure of ourselves. We feel like we know where we're going. And this is generally speaking, of course, you have to take into account all the transits, all the other transits that are going on as well. But this repeats every 8 or 9, or excuse me, every 9 or 18 years. Age 27. Age 27 is a big one because that's the beginning of the Saturn return. But you also have a nodal, what is it? Nodal opposition at that time as well. So again, you're feeling kind of out of sync. You're off your path. Maybe you don't feel like you're doing what we're meant to in this life, etc. But every 9 years, we kind of go through the cycle, and very dramatic changes happen when these eclipses line up with the nodes in our chart. Now, that's true for everyone, but for you, this would be very, very impacting because you resonate with eclipse energy. Wow, and this is really interesting because especially combining with your 12th house sun, um, you are extremely open to strange and bizarre things, bizarre information, or I don't know, maybe strange people. None of that stuff really freaks you out at all. I think you're very brave in that regard. You can kind of venture into the unknown. But I'm just saying that because Sun in 12th house is already kind of like that. It's already spiritual and more inclined to understand things that normal people might shy away from or have a hard time understanding. 12th house Sun or Moon people naturally gravitate to and understand. So you already have that, but then also being born during eclipse, you like eclipse times, like right now is a good example. May 2nd, 2022 is as I'm filming this here. We are in the middle of eclipse season now, so you can experience that, how like everything becomes more strange, there's more coincidences, there's more bizarre things happening. You almost thrive on that, or you do very much thrive on that energy. You aren't weirded out. You're more than happy to accept the some level of bizarreness and then move on to the next level. I think for you, it's a learning experience, and that kind of touches on your Virgo rising and Mercury, but I haven't even really delved into that yet. But yeah, so I guess that's all I was saying there. That yeah, you'd be very very open to strange experiences and information. But again, I just wanted to kind of highlight how growth for you would take time. You will change dramatically in your lifetime, more so than other people, I think. You'll learn a tremendous amount and grow a lot. And again, especially, I'm sure you're already going to do this anyway, but I would especially look to the ages 9, 18, 27, 36, and so on, going up by 9, because the nodes will, the nodes turning like that completely change your life. I would expect you've had some really high highs and low lows and some dramatic, sudden life-changing events at those ages. And that's something to look out to too. You can capitalize on that. I think the nodal opposition is especially negative earlier in life, and the nodal return is especially positive. But as we get older, we tend to stabilize a little bit. And I think especially having this information, you can apply and maybe minimize the I don't know, the less pleasant aspects of that cycle. But that's definitely something to be aware of. Very interesting, very interesting here. Um, okay, and I just want to make sure I've covered all that before I move on. Let's jump to your Virgo placement. So, to me, I've this is the third major place where like the bulk of your astrological energy is, so that's why I'm starting there. Of course, Leo sun, of course, but then that Aquarius as well. And I'm still gonna go back to the nodes too. I'm actually not done with that, but thirdly, you have a lot in Virgo. Virgo rising, and that would make Mercury your chart ruler, and Mercury is also in Virgo, where it is in domicile and exalted, so it's also a final dispositor. So you have Mercury in a very strong, I want to say very privileged position. So you have this very superior analytical ability, which, I kind of could already kind of sort of gather from our emails. But so you probably already know this, but you have a superior learning ability. Virgo has that level of skepticism where it it's a little bit curious, but it's mostly skeptical, and that skepticism is necessary to ensure that it gathers information that is worthwhile and that is concrete, that is true, or that is functional, that has a purpose. It's not just clutter in the mind, I guess you could say. So you have that down. You know exactly how to focus. You know how to, this would also just apply to your daily life. You're very organized. You're very efficient. Um, if you ever are unorganized, it's deliberate. It's because it's because you've decided that it's most efficient to be unorganized in that circumstance. Like you're very. I think there's this like deliberateness with Virgo energies, especially Mercury in Virgo, where you're so hyper aware. Like the I think it's the frontal cortex that does all like the analytical work, so to speak, and it takes a lot of calories. It's very difficult, especially for a lot, depending on people's astrology and whatnot. But you are naturally focused in that area. You have a lot of energy and a lot of capability there. So for you, analyzing is not hard at all. It's almost like you can't really turn it off. You're kind of constantly doing it. And I think this is really beautiful when we take this, superior analytical ability, this ability to be really practical and to be focused. When we combine that with the Leo sun, which is so open, there's this openness to Leo. Like Leo in itself, I wouldn't see as an intellectual sign. Sun in Leo is not intellectual. But if you combine it with intellectual placements like the ones, like some of the ones you have, the sheer openness of Leo, it can result in it being kind of a truth seeker, or it wants to explore, it wants to explore everything, and that's typically in a very physical way. But in your chart, where Sun is in the 12th house, and then you've got strong Virgo and Aquarius, that sheer openness would allow you to, you would naturally expose yourself to a lot of really deep information and profound thoughts and learning, I think. And then also combining that with the Aquarius moon is very open as well. And then we already talked about how it's a holistic placement and wants to view the big picture. So you're always, especially since your moon is there, moon is where your core personality is. So you're naturally always focused on, how does this fit in with the big picture? How does this fit in with society or humanity, or how does it fit in with the long-term picture here? Moon in Aquarius kind of has that vision and that detachedness as well. You can remove yourself, or whatever your personal biases are. You would do an excellent job of removing yourself from the picture and seeing, does this information make sense? It doesn't matter how I feel about it, but how does it actually kind of make sense with the whole picture here of what I know thus far and stuff. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is these all together is a really interesting, especially with the eclipse that happened on your birthday. So I really think that you're a truth seeker. I think that's a big part of what you're meant to do here. And we haven't even talked about these other placements that strengthen that even more, like the Gemini Mid Heaven. I guess we could jump there right now. So, Gemini Mid Heaven, especially a lot of people like you that have Virgo Rising have Gemini Mid Heaven. So both the Rising and the Mid Heaven are ruled by Mercury. So this just shows that we already established you've got this superior analytical ability. You're an intellectual. You want to learn. You want to figure things out. You're naturally curious and open to information and provocative ideas, or information that other people might shy away from, like astrology, for example. Um, but anyway, so having Gemini midheaven, it shows that that's really present in your career, though, in your professional life, and how you're seen in public. Gemini is all about that interchange of information. It wants to learn, and it also wants to share what it's learned. Gemini is almost like a 12-year-old kid. It's like asking all the questions. How does this work? What does that mean? It's asking a million different questions, and then as soon as it learns something that it finds interesting, it runs around telling everyone, "Oh my God, what? Look what I just learned! It's so cool," or whatever. Um, so it's even though Gemini is so intellectual, it's very intelligent. It's almost like a childlike energy in a way here. But having that in your career, it would make you an excellent journalist. That's always what I go to in my mind. Gemini Midheaven would be like the journalist, the reporter, something where it gathers information and then distributes it, or a teacher of some sort, something where you've got to be communicating, writing, speaking, teaching, training, something of that nature. But again, this is just one placement. This it shows that this is very important in your career. And this is I think you have very strong potential there. Not only for all the reasons that I just outlined, but also because your midheaven is at 0 degrees Gemini. It's at the first degree of Gemini, so it's a very strong. It's very potent. It means that this is I almost want to say like a new wave in your a new wave in your soul. I don't know where that's coming from, but it almost shows to me it's it's very powerful. I think it's very powerful in itself, but then you combine it with all these other placements, and I think you have tremendous potential for I don't know, teaching, learning. So especially talking about your career or what you're meant to do here, it's something with information. Um, you're a truth seeker, and I think Virgo rising, Virgo Mercury, Aquarius moon, Aquarius north node. Virgo and Aquarius are both they're intellectual, but they're both fixers. They want to fix things. They want to help people. They want to solve problems. Both Virgo and Aquarius are often represented by angels. It doesn't mean that those people that with those energies are angels or that they're better than anyone else. What it means is that they're supposed to be helpers. Angels are meant to be helping, or guides or whatever. Um, so I really think that's what you're meant to do. You're meant to be a truth seeker, and much of that is just for your own, maybe selfish curiosity. It's just what you want to do for yourself, for your own enrichment, and that's beautiful. But I think a big part of it as well is that like the more information you gather, I think it's natural to feel obligated to share it. I think that's something you would relate to, judging on your placements, that you would feel the need to share that information as well, to pass the torch and so on. So anyway, I'm kind of babbling here, but I really think you're meant to be a truth seeker, and you're meant to share that truth. How you do that is up to you. You could do that a million different ways, but I just can't state enough that you have this amazing potential there. Um, let's see, South Node. I think I got excited. I'm trying to think of where to jump to next here. Um, I could go. Let's kind of step back, and I'll do some more basic stuff or more general stuff. So Virgo rising means that like the way you enter situations, especially like socially or otherwise, is actually kind of slow. You're kind of slow to enter. You know, you're not a super overbearing personality. You like to kind of hang back and observe a little bit before making any bold moves. Um, and I've just noticed with Virgo risings that they're very polite and mild mannered, but then once they do open up, they have this kind of sarcastic sense of humor, and they have a great sense of humor because they're very sharp. They see a lot of like little details that are that to me I personally find amusing. But that's very consistent. That's what I've noticed here. So yeah, you would have that general approach here. Um, let's talk. I just want to touch on the nodes. I don't want to forget that. So it's very interesting when when you have Sun and Moon conjunct or near the nodes like you do, because it does change things a lot. So South Node is, I'm sure you've probably heard me say, is, that's often attributed to where does what is your soul lineage? Where do you come from? What is your karma or kind of like baggage that you've had before? What did you kind of do in your last life, so to speak, before coming here? South Node in Leo, it shows that in a past life you were a celebrity or you were a leader, you were a king or a queen. You were in a position where you had a lot of authority, a lot of power, and you still have those capabilities here, but in this life you're meant to explore something different. So it's all about capitalizing on the strengths that we have from the South Node because there is a lot of strength there. The South Node shows what you are familiar with already, so what you're naturally very good at. But if we remain just in our South Node and we just continue to play with those kind of gifts and strengths that we have related to our South Node, it will lead to our downfall. And I think much of that, may have happened in our last life as well. You may have, I don't know, maybe you had too much power. Maybe you abused your power in a past life, or maybe you were too focused on your own, self or your own, um, I don't know, like the attention was always on you. And in this life, you have many placements that contradict that. I think you're naturally very empathetic and intuitive in this life. So I don't want to imply that you're, selfish or anything like that. Um, but having South Node in 12th house Leo means that you're naturally gifted with, spirituality and understanding the subconscious. But then it's almost like a catch 22 because South Node and Leo would indicate that you are naturally gifted at being in the limelight. You want to have all the attention, but the 12th house is hidden away. So it's almost like you want it, like you thrive with the attention and that power and being, I don't know, like a spokesperson, so to speak, but in an indirect way or in a backward way. So I don't know, maybe that could be something like what I'm doing right now, where, I'm doing something very public, but physically I'm, alone in my home. Do you know what I mean? So like 12th house is always kind of isolated like that. But Leo is the center of attention, the center of authority and power. So that's what you're naturally oriented toward and what you're gifted at. So being, and I'm kind of stumbling through this here, but being center of attention, the leader, but isolated at the same time. So maybe in a lost life, like this makes me think you were like a king or a queen that, had all the power and was in charge of everything, but was, actually alone all the time and like didn't actually have a lot of a lot of opportunity to meet, in person with the people of the land or what have you. That's just an example I made up, but though I'm trying to illustrate the themes there, if that makes sense. So something where you were, on the one hand in this position of like celebrity, very public, but you were isolated at the same time. So that's something that you'll be prone to, that you'll be comfortable with in this lifetime. But again, that will lead to your downfall. The North Node in sixth house Aquarius, right by your moon, is indicating that I think you're meant to focus more on other people, focus on the big picture, focus on the long term. Now, your moon being in Aquarius sixth house helps with this. That this isn't a completely foreign energy to you, so you have that to your advantage. Most people don't have that. They don't have sun or moon by their north node, so it's very uncomfortable. They don't know how to experience it. It takes time for them to get out of their comfort zone and explore the themes of their north node. But because you do have moon there, you it gives you an advantage, and that's a strength as well, and that's part of the beauty and the rarity of being born on an eclipse, that something something that many people struggle with, you already are kind of gifted at. um like you it's like you have a little bit less work to do in your life in that regard. You have a running start, so to speak. So you already understand being unbiased, removing yourself from the picture, doing something for the greater good of, your tribe, your town, your society, what have you. Um, this is a really, really unusual aspect, so I hope I've defined that well enough for you. But if I could sum it up, I mean, it's very complex. I think you're already very selfless, but I think this is just reaffirming that, what you're doing in this life is not actually about you. It's about like changing the future, or yeah, changing a course of events, helping other people in a very large way. So you're not necessarily going to be meeting people one on one. Maybe that could be part of it, but Aquarius typically likes to help people in a more indirect way. So Aquarius is like, the scientist that invents a new medicine or something, and the medicine will go on to heal thousands or millions of people. That scientist didn't even meet directly with the person, that they're healing, maybe. The scientist, it's not an emotional thing. It's not like, Aquarius isn't like a shoulder to cry on. It's not that kind of helping. It's more like informational or technological. And it's often from behind the scenes as well. So that's what I see. I'm not saying you shouldn't help people one on one. That could very well be a part of it. But I think you're also meant to help people on a larger scale. I know this is so intense that I don't know if this is fair to say that you have this like huge task, but I really feel like it's accurate. That's what the, being born on an eclipse suggests. I don't know, helping people. So especially maybe doing something with technology where you could broadcast information, or share information through your career, through your profession, in a widespread way. That's what I see as a big part of what you're meant to do here. Um, let's kind of jump around. Let's jump to something different here, and I'll talk about more kind of romantic areas, for you. So for those, I go to mostly the Venus, Mars, and the descendant. Venus and Mars are more of what we are attracted to, and descendant is more of what we actually need in a long-term relationship. So of course we do need to be attracted to the person we're with, but we also need other things besides just, aesthetic or carnal attraction. The descendant is more about like how we actually view other people, what we need from other people, what we need in a partnership, and that type of thing. So first with Venus and Mars, well, so you have Venus in Cancer, Mars in Taurus, and descendant in Pisces. So right away, these are all yin energies. They're all water or earth. So this shows that you would be attracted to a mate that is maybe more easygoing, more kind of slow or deliberate, more cautious, someone who kind of plans more. And I know you already shared that your husband, I think, has Venus in Scorpio, so that makes a lot of sense. That would fit with, Venus in Scorpio is a water energy, just like your Venus is water, your descendant is water. I don't know his other placements at all, but that to me makes complete sense. His Venus fits in; it really clicks with your chart. Um, it makes a trine, at least by sign, to your Venus. Having Venus in Cancer, I know I made that Venus in Cancer video that you watched, so you already know this part, but the way you are in relationships, the way you express your attraction and desire is through Cancer. So you have a very mothering, very nurturing energy, especially in relationships. You want to take care of your partner, and sometimes you can be the baby too. Cancer can be. It's definitely the mother, but it can be the child or the baby as well. So you want to be nurtured as well. You want to be taken care of. So this is very emotional, kind of sensitive um, Venus sign. So you're very kind of more emotional or sensitive with relationships and romance, that type of thing. And again, Venus and Scorpio for your husband, that totally trines that. They're both water signs. They're both sensitive. They're both very loyal. They both want security. Because they're both being both so emotional and so sensitive, they both want that security. I think I already said this, but they both want consistency. Cancer is not a fixed sign, but it does definitely desire consistency because it has so many emotions. It wants something to hold on to. It wants to be grounded. So anyway, like I said, I don't know his other placements, but Venus and Scorpio seems like a slam dunk. It makes positive aspects and easy aspects to your Mercury, your Venus, your descendant. Um, so it matches what you desire in a relationship, what you need in a relationship, and and it would also mean that, because your Venuses are in similar signs, the way each of you express yourself in relationships would be similar. You would have an easy method of communication. You would understand each other very easily. Okay. Having Mars in Taurus is a little bit different. Your Mars is in detriment. So, and this I can go off into a little bit more about the general personality on this one as well. So, having Mars in detriment means that you don't always. It can be very difficult, especially early on. You don't have that Mars energy. Mars is a malefic, so it's not. It's definitely not good to have too much Mars energy. It'll make you an asshole, make you aggressive. Um, so I guess what I'm saying, the flip side of that is having Mars in Taurus, having Mars in detriment will make you very nice, very pleasing, very pleasant. But that can be difficult for you because you may not always know how to assert yourself, especially early on in life. Mars in Taurus, though, despite being in detriment, I would say is definitely not the weakest placement, or the hardest one. Mars, like Mars is almost more confused in a sign like Pisces, even though it's not in detriment, for instance. So Mars and Taurus, Taurus does stand firm. It holds its ground. Taurus can be a little bit passive, which I think is why Mars is in detriment there. So you may not always know how to assert yourself early on, but I think when it really comes down to it, you do know where your boundaries are. So you will defend yourself if it gets to that point there. And especially if you just give it time, it's easier to develop these more challenging detriment placements. Um, let's see. Another thing, though, that Mars being in detriment indicates is that so Mars is what we fight for. It's also what we fight against, though, at times too. So it's both. Um, but because your Mars is in detriment, it indicates that what you fight for and what you fight against is uh, different than the norm, or different than what most people are fighting for. Excuse me. So I think for you, judging on your other placements, you're very intellectual, you're a truth seeker. I think the truth that you would find and that you would resonate with would be very much against the status quo, very much against the norm. So what you're fighting for, you're almost fighting against the status quo. You're fighting against what is mainstream, what is accepted. You're fighting against what we're supposed to, think or believe or participate in. Um, it means that you have a unique fighting stance, and what you fight for and how you fight is unexpected. It's different. It's not just standard run of the mill, if you will. Hopefully that makes sense there. But anyway, so Mars, I guess Mars has many factors, just like all the planets. But Mars also shows what kind of man you'd be looking for, and what you're attracted to in a mate. It's also our sexuality. So because you have Mars in detriment, it can indicate a low sex drive. Um, but but being in Taurus, it's a very earthy placement. So you would be very sensual, especially combining the Mars and Taurus with Venus and Cancer. You'd be very sensual with relationships, kind of like touchy and stuff. Anyway, and Mars and Taurus, so it shows that you would be attracted to a kind of earthy male figure, or you know, and even even regardless of gender, having Venus in Cancer and Mars in Taurus means you would want you would be attracted to those energies in a mate. So Someone may be watery and or earthy, preferably both, with water or earth in their chart, especially Cancer and Taurus in particular. And Cancer and Taurus, I think, are very stable energies. They're very sensual, stable. They're both very what's the word? Sentimental, but they also hold their ground. Uh, and they're both kind of the lunar signs. They're both I don't know, emotional, and you know they're very good listeners. They're empathetic, and they're willing to give you the time to understand another person's point of view. But at the same time, they have fixed boundaries. They will not tolerate someone crossing a line with them, so to speak. So that is the energy that you would have in relationships and in romance. But that's also what you would be attracted to in a mate as well. You would want someone sensitive, nurturing, and kind, but who definitely knows their boundaries, who knows their values, who knows, they have that kind of structure to them. That's what you'd find really attractive, and what you'd need in that capacity. However, your descendant in Pisces, and this is what I would look to, above anything else for a relationship. It shows that you being a Virgo rising, you would be the more practical one in the relationship. So you would be the one kind of figuring everything out and taking care of the day to day. I don't know, you'd be, like you have a really good handle on money, for example. So you got that down. You can, I don't know, take care of that type of stuff, or take care of the planning or whatever. You're kind of the rock. You're the more logical one. But what you're attracted to in a relationship is someone a little bit more dreamy or creative, someone artistic, someone more spiritual, someone outside of the box. And I think this totally fits with a lot of other energies in your chart as well. That you're kind of outside of the box too. You're dabbling with really interesting information and things of that nature. So you're attracted to a mate that could be open to all that. That could be very open minded, and someone, again, sensitive, nurturing, kind, more emotional, more watery. So someone with Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces in their chart. I think Pisces above all else, just because your descendant is there. But having Venus in Cancer, that completely goes, it shares many of the same themes as your descendant in Pisces as well. They're both water signs. They're both emotional, empathetic, and intuitive, creative, artistic. So you would definitely be attracted to someone more um, sensitive or emotionally intelligent, spiritual. I don't know, open to strange or bizarre things, open to the unknown, I guess. So that's what you would need more than anything else. And again, you'd be the more structured one. So you actually are attracted to someone who's a little bit less structured, a little bit, maybe a little bit more wild than you are, or a little bit spontaneous, I guess. I don't know, something of that nature. Okay. Um, and definitely someone with water in their chart. I think that's the most important thing above all else. Yes, you do have Mars and Taurus, which is Earth, but any water sign will have harmonious aspects with your Mars, pretty much. Scorpio opposes it, which is kind of a double-edged sword, but that would still, any water sign would definitely work still for sure. Um, so let's see here. Yeah, so I guess Pisces in a chart would be good, but for a mate, it doesn't have to be Pisces. Scorpio or Cancer would be good too as well. Um, I think Scorpio in particular would be very interesting because not only would it, tick all the boxes for your Cancer, Venus, and your Pisces descendant, but also Scorpio makes a sextile to your Virgo rising and Mercury. And then Scorpio's a fixed sign, and you have, Sun in Leo, which is fixed, and then Moon in Aquarius, which is fixed. And although Scorpio does square those energies, so it's different and it can be, edgy at times, can bring some kind of conflict at times. Um, you having those fixed signs in your chart, you are very strong-willed. Like you know yourself very well. You know you know what your limits are. You know what your boundaries are, and you present yourself as you are. You don't change yourself for anyone. So when you meet another fixed sign, like let's say Scorpio, even though they may be very different from you, the fact that they are strong-willed as well, and that they know who they are, they're not going to change themselves for anyone. just like you know, although you may disagree, maybe often, you may be very different, you may disagree a lot. Um, the fact that you know, hold your own, that you have that strong identity and strong will, I think it cultivates mutual respect there, mutual admiration, and the differences you can actually learn to appreciate. So, so I think honestly, for compatibility, I would say Scorpio above all else, but Pisces would also work really well for you. And that's more more talking about like romantic compatibility. So let's see. Yeah, yeah. Definitely water. You'd be attracted to water signs, I would think. Okay. I think this is getting long, so let me jump to your childhood a little bit. I know I touched on that, but there's a couple things I haven't quite talked about. Having South Node in Sagittarius shows that you may have moved around a lot as a child. Um, and many people do physically move, you know, maybe long distances at times, having Sagittarius South, or excuse me, Sagittarius IC. I don't know if I said South Node, I meant IC. I'm sorry. So this arrow right here, it's at 0 degrees Sagittarius. The IC shows kind of your foundation, but also it's much of your childhood and kind of who you are as a child. So as a child, you may have almost acted kind of like a Sagittarius. So you'd be very uh, spontaneous and free spirited, very adventurous. And again, you would come up with very different energies and themes. You would come up with maybe people of different socioeconomic backgrounds or different belief systems, different cultures. And, you know, like I said, oftentimes that does end up being someone physically moving very far. But you don't necessarily have to do that. Just because you have Sagittarius IC doesn't mean that you have to physically move. But I would definitely expect that at a young age you were exposed to, you know, people with very different characters or very different backgrounds, and from that there were very different ideas and beliefs and you know attitudes, cultures that you were exposed to. So that creates in you this openness to unusual people or information, this curiosity and adventurousness as well. And that's something that will remain with you for the rest of your life. It ends up kind of turning into the mid heaven, which is opposite, but they are exactly opposite. They're two sides of the same coin. The you know being exposed to such different information and people at a young age and different energies, that ends up translating to this need to learn and teach as a professional in your public life later in life. So the Gemini Mid Heaven and Sagittarius IC go hand in hand. Also for childhood, though, I also look at the sun and the moon and how they aspect one another. Sun generally represents the father, although Saturn can as well, and then moon is more of the mother. Um, and IC often pertains to the mother as well. So with having the IC in Sagittarius and then the moon in Aquarius, this points to me. I would think that your mother was maybe very idealistic or philosophical, intellectual, someone who was very intelligent, but had a wild side as well. They're kind of rebellious or provocative in some way. And then Sun in Leo points to a very strong-willed father, outgoing father, and the Sun and the Moon opposing like this shows that your parents were very different from one another. So they may have, you know, clashed at times, or they may have had very different parenting styles. That for a child can be confusing. You may not have always known what was expected of you, but it creates these two different sides in your personality at a young age, and so although it can be difficult, it ends up making you much more open-minded and more multifaceted. So you're more of a complex person and more able to understand differing ideas, differing opinions. You're more able to understand, you know, you can understand and listen to someone expressing an opinion that may be very different from yours, but you can still, you know, entertain that thought in your mind, I guess, so to speak. And again, that comes from these very differing attitudes in your household, different parenting styles. Um, Saturn retrograde, you have Saturn retrograde in Capricorn. Saturn retrograde can indicate a father being absent, so maybe your dad wasn't always there. Your sun is also in the 12th house, which would indicate that as well. So Maybe your dad wasn't there all the time. Even if your dad was there, maybe he just worked a lot, or and it could also be, this is kind of harder to talk about, but it could be that your father was maybe mentally not always there, so he was, I don't know, dealing with like alcohol or drugs or depression, where he, I don't know, but whatever the circumstances were, your father may have not always been present there. So that kind of, authoritative or structured energy that would maybe ideally come from the father is sort of lacking from your chart. So you don't have that, um like, you at least have some fixed signs in your chart and some Virgos, so you know yourself. You are a strong-willed individual. You know your boundaries well, but at the same time, it's almost like you kind of lack structure, especially early on. This is something that you would, of course, grow with and develop later in life, but especially at a younger age, I think you might feel kind of just I'm kind of picturing it in my head, but I don't know how to put it into words. You'd feel like unstructured or like untethered, like you're kind of just drifting. I guess is what I'm trying to say here. But I think that's all part of the process. Although that may be difficult, maybe not feel ideal at the time, I think that's part of the process of you coming into contact with so much different information, so many different energies, so many different themes and experiences, and that would lead you to, I don't know, it'd almost be necessary for you to become such a truth seeker and be able to acquire and hold such vast information, I think. I hope I'm right about this. This is what I really see in your chart. I never really know until I talk to the person afterward. I see it in the chart and I say what I see, but and I get good results. People are generally happy with their readings, but I don't. I'm just judging off the astrology here. So okay, but think I've covered most of what I want to say. You have Venus conjunct Chiron in Cancer, so this shows that you'd almost have like a healing power, especially in relationships, especially in romance. Um, like you being attracted to someone just in itself, like you end up healing them. You end up almost also being attracted to karmic relationships. So I don't know, relationships that are spiritually unique. That sounds so vague, but like I don't know, you have very profound experiences with relationships. Like you heal them, they heal you, and they also guide you. You guide them, and they guide you in spiritual consciousness and awakening as well. And you're very intuitive with relationships. When you're connected with a partner, and especially the longer, like once you've established that strong connection with them, you're very intuitive about them. Like you know stuff about them without them even telling you. And like sometimes if something happens to your partner, you'll already have a feeling, or you can even have a premonition of something happening with them before it happens. So that's very powerful. I know that you've already experienced this. I don't know, but I would really strongly speculate that you've already experienced this. So I just want to recognize that, the more you recognize it, the stronger it will be. So that's really powerful. You can use that. Um, okay, and that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. At this point, you have completed your first Saturn return. So you're entering your 30s. I'm not doing the math to figure out how old you are, but just judging on where your Saturn is, you've already dealt with stepping up, what we all go through in our very late 20s, where we have increased responsibility. We have to do something on our own in some way, some capacity, and you've dealt with that already. So I think you're really stepping into your purpose here and what you're meant to do. I think this is especially important for you as well because, like I said at the beginning of this video, it takes time for you to develop and to really step into your character and to do what you're meant to do here. Like all of it is what you're meant to do, but I'll reveal a little bit here. Like I have some similar themes in my chart where, it takes time in my life to integrate these experiences, but especially once you step into the 30s, that's where you're meant to start applying the information, start applying what you've learned. You're of course going to continue learning, you always will. Um, but I would speculate that starting about now, or maybe starting about a year or two ago, I think you're stepping into a more expansive, more outgoing phase of your life that will really continue onward for the rest of your life. That you're meant to take more of a role, more responsibility. You're meant to be, speaking more rather than just learning. And again, you'll always be learning, but you're meant to, increasingly more and more as we go into the future here, you're meant to apply that information and to share it, if that makes sense. So I think I'm going to leave you with that. But of course, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to delve into anything further. Um, and yeah, just let me know your thoughts. But thank you so much for this request, and thank you for all your other requests as well. I really appreciate them. You've given me some good requests. It's hard to know what to prioritize talking about sometimes on this channel, so I really appreciate that, and I will do your other requests as well. But okay, but thanks for the opportunity to read your chart. And again, for anyone else listening, if you want to reach me, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.